Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here, my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8.6. Okay, just one thing I want to give advice to Black Ice players in Hearts of Iron 3. There are a lot of timers involved in the game, and they don't always work well. I've used them a lot for things. They use them a lot in, even more so in Black Ice. And it's like cooldown periods or, have X effect plus 60 days or something like that, that may be in the used in the mod. They work quite well enough if you just let the game play and play the game. To the best of my knowledge, through my playing, through all of the playing of the various people, they work just fine. But where they sort of fall down is and which is happening, I think, a little bit, because I think there's a few things that I think I'm missing because of some of that, but is playing the game for 30 days time or something like that, and then save it, start it back up an hour later or whatever it is. Some of these timers, some, not all, not everyone, is not guaranteed, it happens sometimes, will get reset to 0 or to whatever. So just a sort of reminder. Way back when, before I started really, I was modding, but I wasn't modding as very seriously. Before I made any videos or anything else like that. Quite honestly, I leave my computer on I leave my computer on quite a lot, but leave it on for days at a time, and just have Hearts of Iron running, that turn it to the background, minimize it, get it down there, but it's still there, pause, just to keep the timers flowing, so that if I wanted to play it for 5 minutes or 20 minutes, I'd pop in, play it, and then just leave it on the computer. So now I'm a bit extreme on some of that, but just sort of saying is that the longer the sessions are, the better those timers work. Not a big deal. Won't ruin your game if it won't, if you gotta start and stop it a lot, but a few things might not. Oh, and that doesn't mean that they won't work. It just means that because some things have had like a year cooldown, and doesn't mean that everything's set to reset to 0, but some things just might not be set right. So it may take a year and a half or something to fire later on, or whatever it might be. It's an inexact science, because it just doesn't work well. It works, but doesn't work well when you start and stop it a lot. That's all. Just a warning. Okay, and we've had this event before. Great, control our new lands. As you can see, we got an army headquarters here. Don't know who to attach it to. Okay, let's pause. Okay, we'll go through this. Okay, Heereswaffenamt. That is Army Arms Headquarters, basically, is, I think, the way you translate that into English. MKB for short. Well, no, sorry, no. HW lowercase a, uppercase a, for short. But the they want, and this is an interesting tale, and this is the start of it. This is a 7.92 by does it say in here? No, they don't. But I think it's by 50 something. I don't know. The Russian is 7.62 by 54. The R, and the R stands for rimmed, because unlike, this is a semi-rim cartridge in that the rim is sort of indented. The Russian is longer, so it's a 50 something, roughly, long cartridge, and it's 7.92 instead of 7.62, so it's um, you know, 30% of a millimeter thicker, bigger round. Well, they want a shorter cartridge because they are starting to realize at this point, and this is, I think this is, because they don't have a specific year in here, but this is firing because it was back in 39. Maybe I just don't have a good hard date, but it was back in 39 that they start wanting a development of a shorter cartridge, that they're realizing that their standard rifle cartridge is overpowered. It is one of the bigger, heavier, more powerful cartridges out there. The French use and the diameter of the cartridge isn't everything, because part of it is how much powder is put behind it, but the weight of the bullet is very much part of the reaction, because you put a lot of powder behind a very light bullet, you'll still get a kick, but it won't be nearly as much as the equal amount of powder behind a heavy bullet. As long as it's a significant amount of powder. I mean, you could put a heavy bullet, but that's hardly anything. But if you put, what I'm saying is, if you neck this whole huge cartridge down to a 5.56 type thing, which is 22 caliber, you neck it all the way down that and leave the same amount of powder behind it, it's going to be a whole lot less of a kick. So the weight of the bullet itself is part of the reaction, the recoil for shooting the round. The heavier the bullet is and the longer the bullet is, it's the length of the bullet matters for sectional density, and sectional density really matters in bullets. And this is one of the things that I've learned is why lead is still to this day used, even though they sort of hope that it doesn't deform, is lead is a super dense metal, much more dense than steel. So flying through the air, that sectional density works better than a full steel bullet because it's denser. But it's also more malleable, so once it hits a hard object, it's more likely to deform, even though it's denser than steel. Steel's harder. Air doesn't put that much resistance up to affect this thing. So they're already realizing out of their bolt-action rifles, and we can look at, and I've been saving up examples of historical semi-auto rifles, and in the last 2 years I've come up and found some very interesting stuff. A fair number of stuff even before World War I, some of the stuff during World War I, though most of those, including like the French who did field a semi-auto rifle in World War I, just aren't very robust and just aren't very good. They work on the range nice enough, they work in good conditions nice enough, but start stressing the rifle out too much, they stop working. And they often become harder to work than a bolt-action rifle. So it's not like, sometimes you can get it with semi-automatic, other times you have to hand cycle it. No, it gets worse. So that's not good. But still looking into it a little bit more. So the Germans are obviously realizing that semi-automatic rifles are a thing to come. Militaries are conservative. Militaries believe the only time you change something is once it becomes absolutely necessary. But they're starting to look and think ahead. And they realize that they don't need this huge cartridge. So, still to this day, the U.S. and NATO still uses 7.62 by 51 NATO, or the 308 caliber rounds, which are just a lighter 30 caliber round than the 30-06, but performs almost equally the same. Bullet's just a little heavier, but a little more powder, but functionally the same general performance that the 30-06 has, but with a lighter and more receptive package. So it's very similar. But so there's still obviously the need for that, and since the 2000s came around, there's been a resurgence in 308 battle rifles, often for service in places like Afghanistan and even Iraq, where you have large open ranges, and the 223 is just a little too light for that. But that doesn't. That's sort of more of a, if you will, a specialty weapon. So you got general purpose machine gun type rounds and some battle rifles, while most are wanting a lighter round. So the Waffenamt here, the arms headquarters, realizes that their bullets are just a little too big and we need to do something better. Now, they both are 7.92. The Germans stayed with that, but if you notice, the length of the bullet here and its tapering is much shorter than here, and both bullets will protrude a ways back into the case. I don't know if they protrude equally as far or not, but this is going to be a shorter bullet, not just shorter casing. So they've got to work all this stuff out, and this is sort of the cartridge is around by now that they're developing the shorter cartridge in 39, and you can see that size comparisons between the two of those. So they've got this. Now they don't have a gun for it yet. Obviously you can just build a bolt action rifle if you want, but they had no consideration to that. So that's starting this. So we can support development of this or not. And just so you know, you have where is it? Somewhere in here. Oh, assault rifles is this tech here, which will give a good bonus to soft attack if we can get once we get assault rifles. So got to be at war and some other things, but so we can go down this, cost a little bit of supplies, but we'll do it. And this starts out development of the Sturmgewehr ultimately, but this is the starting phase of that. Okay, freewheeling Schussstaffel. This is freewheeling is a free will or whatever, volunteer basically. Schutzstaffel. This is an element of the DP, the Deutsches Party in Slovakia. There's the sort of Führer dude for this party. So yes. Now if we had, you see, again, I'm giving you my design philosophy here. You're forming it. I'm not giving you the choice of it because you sort of already did the choice of supporting the DP. If you decided not to support the DP, you wouldn't get that. But well, let's just attach it to one of these cores here. And I even made a general out of him, Franz Kazmarian or whatever. He's their little Führer. Gets a now it definitely sort of got this big in numbers, but it wasn't, but not so much because well, a lot of the personnel as time goes on gets somewhere between drafted and encouraged to volunteer for various Waffen-SS type units, and that's what happens with a lot of these localized either German, because this is basically only open to Germans in Slovakia. It's not, to my knowledge, they don't recruit any Slovaks in this unit. It's purely German. But the local SS, that's the Norwegian SS, does recruit a lot of people, but their numbers sort of stay small because they join the local SS. The Waffen-SS is sort of recruiting and trying to get, mostly through volunteer means, to get the Norwegians to come and join the various Waffen-SS units. So, you know, you recruit 1,000 people, 500 of them go off to the Waffen-SS, and then you recruit another 500 new to sort of replace them. So over time, yeah, you recruit 5,000 people or something, but their strength isn't that big at any one moment normally. Okay, gotta up that just a little bit. Okay, and through various things, we now have a much bigger supply need. So that's cutting into our production, which isn't nice. Also have a lot of upgrades, but I'm not, you know, that hopefully that reinforcement will happen fast. We give them money for crude oil. Why do we need crude oil all of a sudden? Some of our... Well, I did put a bunch of units on the map. Yeah, we'll take France's. Hopefully we'll get there. And hopefully we'll build this. Oh well, now we're back to having positive. I don't know what all that was about. I don't know. No fuel. Okay, medium bomber prototypes. I don't know, some sort of effect, hitting, not hitting. We're really pushing this engine of Hearts of Iron 3. Not the cargo hold too soon. Let's continue to work on improving our submarines so that they can compete once we get out there. Okay, well, now that we have that looking good again, let's dump that French fuel thing. Yes. Well, I want to look at something here. 406. So the 4-year plan, man, we have a lot of those. Oh boy. Oh wow. That's what's going on here. Hmm. 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 That is incredibly expensive. %1 for all of those provinces. So that is Okay. I'm going to pause the episode here, and I'm going to do a screenshot and a few other things. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do from here. I might just go back to a edit the save game or something. I don't know. Which is a pain, of course, but we'll be back hopefully in just a second. Okay, I'm back. Obviously it's hopefully just a brief second for you there between cuts. I went and investigated, and what it was doing is Revolver Help, really good modder. He created an effect, or he had an occupation effect, and then applied it to a region. And the well, he applied it to the provinces in this region here. And when it did that, it magnified itself each time the effect. So what he wanted to do was minus 1% to ICs, just here. And I don't know if he meant that for overall or just in this region, but it applied it everywhere for each province. So now we're back up to where we should be. I've left the effect there, but I just gutted it, unfortunately. There are effects that you can apply to a region that should work here. As you can see here, read down there, German Order Police plus 1% for revolt risk locally here, but you have various other things. I don't know if he means the Order Police there. Well, I think he means the reason having the German Order Police existing and running around there increases your revolt there by 1%, but then of course the idea is these guys here will effectively reduce your local revolt risk. So that works. The other things don't, so I gutted it. Now what that means to the game is, well, maybe I should have 1% less ICs by his whole thinking over there, but I know, because we have almost 600 ICs there. And I agree with a lot of these other things. Now some of these are going away, like pre-war level seaports. That's an effect that's going for a time. I think, again, as I talked about earlier, timers. Don't know if it should have already gone away or not, but it's on a timer that will go away at a certain point. So some of those come and go, and I use those. Like the TRE building, that means there's still an effect going, like building the west wall probably, or something like that I've thrown in there to cover the cost of things. So those things, a lot of those come and go, and they're meant to the Werecrest system too. There was a Werecrest on one there, and those are, see there, like a 1.5 and then a 1%. That's reasonable because that's helping getting a lot of the cheaper various things going on. So that all works, makes sense. I like it, but that just didn't. So I thought I went and built the mod with his latest, because I combined everything with his latest version. So I don't know what your effects if you're playing this and have that happen. Like I say, I gutted mine, and I posted it over on which will already, so I've already posted it as I'm making this, and I'm still a few days ahead, so a week ahead I think right now, before you'll see this. So he may have already created a fix to it. Okay, well, since we have this now, let's be slightly OCD. I presume all of you get basic English, but let's see, OC. It's like not occupational. Oh boy, disorder. It's where people are. I know I'm good. I know some of you are a bit foreign, so, and I don't mean foreign as in bad. I mean foreign as don't necessarily get the colloquial U.S. English. An OCD person like maybe can't deal with things not lined up straight on his desk or something like that. And if somebody moves it, he gets all upset, being overly worried about things. Okay, well let's put this dude in charge of it here. Somebody I probably wouldn't put in charge of a regular army, and an occupational just divisional general here. So again, somebody not so good. Yep, there we go. We'll put him in. There's somebody there, and that will help lower revolt risk, but also help if anything goes stupidly wrong. Okay. We would give them money for fuel. No. Okay, let's go in and look at. We want to up supply production. Lower that down up a little bit. So that's a little better there. Remodders get creative, and sometimes it becomes a bit too creative. And quite honestly, this is why, to some degree, I've been a bit reluctant on things, because things need to be tested, and I have been not testing Third Reich events, and I've been updating that to work with the new versions so that they don't cause conflicts or bugs or whatever like that by checking out certain things. But if the Black Ice designers start making some major change, like I'm reevaluating particularly steel use, but also coal, that, without playing it and seeing it, unintended consequences. It may work well, it may not cause you a crash, a bug, a whatever, but it's not the way I want it to be. Because I want to provide you with a quality product. Heavy artillery. Well, we have a bunch of heavy artillery. But I don't know. Just all those red ones scare me. Not really. That's organizations for trucks and transport. I don't know why specifically that's supposed to lower organization. I don't know. But let's come over here and upgrade torpedo propulsion. And another attack. Okay, medium armored designs. Which of course is grayed out, but let's see. Anything particular? Armored cars that can wait, assault guns. Yeah, let's go with assault guns. Stimmgeschütz. Now light armor designs. Okay, and they're of course grayed out, but well, we won't add any more there. Propulsion, we got a bunch of various benefits, I think, from some of those marine engineering developments. Okay, reducing their money by a little bit. This all fuel, yeah. So we're within a year of starting the war. I'm thinking of May 1940. At least what I'm thinking of. Okay, money for no. We're still in a positive now, just barely. I'm gonna increase factories by a little bit here more, but okay. Ordering the age. What? Okay, I don't know. Let's see about this. Okay. Forming. Oh, this is the 14th Army Corps motorized, activated in Vienna with General Oberst Heinz Guderian. Set as a non-territorial court. Oh, let's see, Vienna. Okay. Yes, please. We want that one. Create conf group Kempf. Okay. That's just their generic. Obviously, they didn't have Tiger 2s at this time. Okay. Let's see. One of three options will happen. 75% chance conf group Kent is activated until February 1940. 25% until July 1940, 5% until January 1986. Or 68, sorry. A little bit of my dyslexia crept in there. Okay, so we formed that. We don't know how long it will last. Okay, ordering Erich von Houten on battleship. Okay, our Erlich von Houten was the first H-39 class battleship ordered by the Oberkommander de Marine. The H-class was a series of battleships designed for Nazi Germany's intended for the requirement of Plan Z in the late 1930s and early 40s. The first variation, H-39, called for 6 ships to be built, essentially an enlarged Bismarck-class battleship with 40 16-inch guns. Look, Von Houten, okay. We can spend the metal and get that or not. 1,500 metal. Okay, I think one, we can afford it, and two, I think that's a reasonable amount, all things considered. Now, I don't think it stays at 10 IC. I think it may get readjusted, but we're going to keep it right down there with everything else. Don't know if we're ever going to put it into production, but I figure what the hell. Now, I like conf group A. I think conf group A are neat. Each of these parts of the conf group A are the same, except, well, they may upgrade to different things. Now, I don't know what happened. I am almost sure that it did go for permanent. If it's February 1940, it won't do us any good because we're not even going to be, well, yeah, we're not going to be at war in February. And July, well, we will be at war in July, but I want to keep this going for a little bit longer. And of course, this is not what they intended. But it's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cheat a little bit. If you change the names of these, they can't remove them. It messes up anything. Now, if you have an event chain, some of these have special color to show, because these are, 2 battalions or whatever, brigades of light armor, which, well, that's good against Poland, but that ain't good against T-34s or something. So you want this event chain to upgrade, and they are almost assuredly having a check to make sure that the brigade is in existence. So you want that to upgrade. So you don't want to change that. But since the conf group A don't upgrade to anything else, aren't generally speaking part of a chain, though there may be one or two that maybe, and I wouldn't mess with those if I think they are. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and do that. You can do that too if you wish. Originally they didn't disappear. Now conf group A admittingly are generally mostly and some persisted for a year or more maybe, but most of them were temporary units that sometimes they were emergency type things, especially in the collapsing part of the Germany and collapsing on the Eastern Front, that they would throw a Luftwaffe, just regular anti-aircraft flak unit, throw it together with a battalion of troops from one unit and a platoon of tanks from somewhere else, and just sort of like, oops, we gotta, and then put it under some colonel or somebody and say, you're in charge of this group and use it. And so really sort of temporary type things. But since I can't create these things, I figure a handful of them, that's all we'll have, is a handful of them, is a reasonable thing to have out on the field. And that's sort of my thought. And like I say, originally they didn't disappear, and I want to keep them. Okay, twin engine fighter prototype. Advance. So, and we are going to stop that, but we did get newer ones. Now I may start building some of those, but let's start moving that over to there. And fuselage aerodynamics, which I believe is down here. Yeah. And let's start upgrading regular. Now, the Saudi Arabian envoy. Adolf Hitler meets at the Obersalzberg with Khalid al-Hud, special envoy of the King of Saudi Arabia, Ibn Abd al-Aziz. In this meeting, Hitler noted that one of the three reasons why Germany had warm sympathies for the Arabs was, and this is quoting it now, because we are jointly fighting the Jews. This led to a discussion of Palestine and the conditions there, and he then stated that he himself would not rest until the last Jews had left Germany. Khalid al-Hud observed that the Prophet Muhammad had acted the same way. He had driven the Jews from Arabia. So, again, we are trying to build understanding with Saudi Arabia on anti-Semitism. So this will improve our relations with the Arab world. Okay, this is part of a chain of events, though this is sort of a looser one. Other things I don't too much are thinking are depending on it. We've talked about that Hitler wanted to create a big, massive art center in Linz. Eventually, I'm someday going to do it. Is all the major cities had a sort of special, I don't know, slogan, name, identity, like the City of Art or the whatever that grew up in this. And I got somewhere, I saved the link to it, all the different cities and what they were sort of tagged for. And that, and create events around informing people of that, which is cool. But Linz is sort of the sort of super art city. Pose here, Herr Dr. Pose, there is to build up a collection of art for the Reich. I've had pictures, I think they're of him, but presenting books to Hitler that are nice printed up books of all of the art they had collected to go into this museum. And this is what a proposal, at least, the museum is going to look like. At this time here in Linz, there is no building. One of the events on the first post for Third Reich events, you scroll, see sample events. One of those there has never been used, and it's Hitler looking at a model of the city of Linz. Just haven't found a use for it yet or whatever, but I made the event image look sort of cool. So they have yet to even start building the building. See, okay, yeah, city, patron city of the Führer is what that stands for, and that's for Linz, is what Linz is known for within these sort of city designations that they sort of fought over, and each city trying to get, not necessarily, I don't think they were all attached to the Führer by any means, but different things like that. Just something to explore someday. So he is sort of not the main guy running around, as we'll see, one of the guys running around actually collecting this stuff, but he's sort of organizing the collection to go into the museum. So that's just sort of interesting at the moment, but later on. Okay, Ambassador von Papen. Of course, he was Chancellor of Germany before Hitler was Chancellor of Germany. He then, I think for a while he wasn't. There were several governmental reshuffles between various elections there, so I don't remember in detail. So he was at one time Chancellor of Germany. He then but he's staying around in the government. Then under the coalition government between the Nationalists and the National Socialists, he comes in while Hindenburg is president. He is the vice chancellor and supposed to sort of keep Hitler in check. Well, he doesn't effectively do so, obviously, but does that. Now, don't know, at some point the vice chancellorship is disappeared, because also the chancellorship has disappeared. That is the Reich Chancellor. That's merged into with the presidency and just called the Führer of Germany, the leader. So it's sort of as a distinct, well, I should say as like a distinct kind of thing. It's disappeared because and this may be something for Americans to understand, most European governments have a head of state and a head of government. Okay, and this is something that Americans are not used to understanding. Um, they think, and I quite honestly, I don't even know who the president of Germany is right now. The president of Germany is almost a non-entity. The the chancellor, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but the chancellor of Germany is Merkel at this time when this is being made out. The chancellor of Germany is the head of the parliamentary party that controls the largest blocks of parliamentary seats. She is the head of government. The president of Germany is sort of presides over it. He's elected, but he has very little power. Unless things have changed a lot since my government class on Germany. Well, sort of governments of Europe, but Germany was a major focus of it. Like a modern day Germany, was, post-wall. We looked at a lot of that coming down. But so that there's this head of government and this head of state. So sometime, and they vary from country to country. In Britain, the head of state is the Queen. The head of government is the Prime Minister. At the time of this recording is Theresa May. And now in France, the president, I do believe, has much more power than the president of Germany. So some of these countries have still maintained their monarchies. They're officially the head of state, and the head of state is like who the ambassador, when he first shows up, presents his credentials, and he's sort of head of the nation as a whole. The head of government is the people who run the government. And basically in all these European countries, there are separate offices. Again, some are still monarchs to this day that are officially head of state, and generally they have little or no power. I think the Queen of England probably is one that has some of the most. But even still, like the King of Spain has a certain amount of power. Now he doesn't rule to say, build a bridge here, or we're going to, raise taxes or lower taxes or something. No, it's more like, who's going to be the prime minister? Oh, well, if somebody's clearly won the election of, number of seats in Parliament and gets a clear majority, well, obviously that person is going to be the prime minister of Spain. But like currently with Theresa May has a minority government, and they sort of have a loose relations with the Unionist Party in Northern Ireland to give them more or less a majority. But even that still sort of worked out. But she sort of went and presented this problem to the Queen, and the Queen says, yes, okay, you have the largest party by far, number of seats, but you don't quite have a majority. But yes, I understand that for supporting of who's going to be prime minister, the Northern Irish people will support you. So yes, I will bless you being a minority prime minister, even though you have a plurality, the most seats in Parliament. So the Queen has this power. The Queen could have refused that. The Queen could have gone, do a new election. Because if I still understand, and it's changed over time, when Theresa May called the new election, well, she did, but what she did, I do believe, is went to the Queen and said, I would like to have a new election. And the Queen goes, okay, you can do that. It's not disrupting to society. It wasn't like, we just had them last week. It's been a few years, and there's been some changes, Brexit particularly. And okay, we want to take the pulse of the nation. And okay, yeah, we can do that. It's not against sort of the British Constitution or whatever. So the Queen said, yes, I believe is how it worked. And it's almost, it's going to take a lot of reasons for the Queen not to say no, to be quite honest. But she does sort of have that power. But so she saw that Theresa May, for some reason, wasn't going to be a stable government, or she saw some other problems, she might have said, no, we don't have a clear clear mandate. Somebody's got to get a clearer mandate. So maybe they do a deal with the SNP up in Scotland with Labour or something, and try to put together a Labour coalition. And if that failed, maybe the Queen would just say, okay, 60 days or 90 days or whatever from now, we're going to hold new elections. And just declare that. So the Queen, this is some of these people, they don't necessarily have lots of power, but they still have a certain amount of power. Now, I quite honestly don't know the Belgian or the Danish or the Dutch monarchies, what kind of powers they may have, but they're still heads of state. So that's sort of important things to know. And so that is different than the American system, where in the American system, the head of government and the head of state is one single person in the president. And that's why Americans don't often understand some of the distinctions in Europe and that going on. So, sorry, a little bit of government class there. Okay, so basically at some point after Bismarck's death, and I don't quite honestly, I just don't know right offhand whether it was right after that or at some point, he von Papen is no longer Vice Chancellor of Germany, I think basically because of the office is abolished. And then, as we talked earlier, he gets sent down to Austria to be ambassador or special representative or whatever of Germany to Austria, basically with the mission from Hitler is you are the point man to work to get unification, to get Anschluss. You're going to be our guy down there in Vienna. Make that happen, make that work, do your best. And it worked, and he got that done. So he won that and that mission. Now, he is then, at this point, is sent to Turkey to try to get, well, it's actually out here in Ankara, though I don't know where the main embassy was, at Constantinople or Ankara, whatever. I think it was out in Ankara. So he is sent out there to improve relations with Turkey. I don't know if he was specifically trying to get Turkey into the Axis or just keep Turkey friendly to Germany and not join the Allies. So we improve our relations by sending von Papen. That's, of course, von Papen. That's I think it's in Ankara. That's the German embassy there. What it looked like, so you can know what it looked like. Okay, Germany and you. This is a magazine published in English, promoting up Germany basically and it's for the American and British readers. I think it was sold there. Just a magazine that talks about how great Germany is, basically. And the two countries will get an event which makes Germany slightly better diplomatic relations. Okay, this is just the event that I have set to fire once you get all three of the members in the tripartite pact announcing it. There's also the other way to do it is if Japan or whatever, or one of the countries, because you haven't worked it out, will sort of get them in the alliance eventually anyways. But this also, as you can see, has a bunch of effects here. Japan will also get a tripartite pact event. Improves relations with some nations, hurts relations with the other nations, because you're now growing this threat block. So the New World Order is developing. Officer recruitment program. Okay, how interesting. This is a little different than it used to be as I remembered it. Okay, Mein Führer, we have implemented a new officer recruitment program, which we believe will significantly increase our officers' ranks without additional investment on our part. Okay, well, this is different than before. So now, until January 1968, or until some other event removes it, we will get 25% for officer. Before, okay, because here, This reduces leadership if we were to do this by 10%. So this is different, because before what would do is take a lot of the unit types and reduce the need. You know, if they normally say, oh well, this brigade needs 20 or needs 30 officers, now it only needs 20 officers, so they would reduce it by so that way. But this has changed that, so I don't think that happens. And part of the problem with doing it that way is you got to go in somewhere, and I thought it may have moved to a hidden tech, line by line for each unit type. And so if you add a new unit type, you got to do and manage it. This looks like it just goes and throws us 10,000 more officers, gain some unity, and then generally have a 25% officer recruitment bonus. Well, good. Okay, I like that. I think that works better. So that I think works better. Okay, so we are now at 110% on officers. And we also have a, of course, down on the bottom, officer recruitment program at plus 25%. Obviously, we have a bunch of other things. The SS Junkerschulen is 25% because that's for sort of balance out for all the SS officers. They're training the Axis generally 3-year draft and other things that will be happening and balanced off with a couple other stuff. So I think that's all good. So we have that going. Now, I don't think we need 20 in leadership now. Let's drop back down to 10. Don't want to gut it because we are still growing our armed forces, and we still, even though it won't immediately help us by having a higher percentage, it will help us to replace losses and other things in combat. So we're going to fix this there. And espionage, I think that's good, and we're just barely ticking away here, keeping a small, well, it's actually, for a while we were dropping down a bit, and not much, but I think maybe having that much to diplomacy there, let's go up to 20. Having that much there, just a small little trickle in of diplomats. So the rest are coming in here. So now we have a big boost. So let's look for 39 techs and submarine damage control. Let's do that. That'll help. Submarine torpedo tubes and periscopes. Those will all be good. Escorts are all looking pretty good there. Transport's not till 40. We're doing light anti-aircraft. Okay, capital ship damage control. Yes, affects a lot of our heavy stuff, so we want to do that. And these at least are many of these, but I know that are in the fire control, are reverse engineerable or gets upgraded to the older stuff. So it's even if we don't. Well, let's improve our police. Now, how are we doing here? Political indoctrination, morale for a bunch of units. Well, let's do blitzkrieg. I think that's more important. And assault concentration. Let's do some airborne unit training. Okay, what I want to also see about doing here is, well, yeah, let's do that. Just a little more there. There we go. There we go. Okay, I think we've done a good job here with maintaining a decent amount of officers. We are still growing our officer base. Okay, we'll no longer receive rare materials from Japan. And we need to readjust here a little bit. Okay, come on, let's get through some of this. I know I've dumped a bunch more stuff up here. No, I don't want this, I want this. These are cheaper Jaeger units in that I didn't use any motorized elements, and so they're not going to use fuel, and they're not going to use ARP cost as much to make. No, Rommel doesn't get stuck in a Jaeger division. Let's go. I'm trying to look for some decent level 2 guys. Okay. There we go. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've tried to keep most of these large stacks. It's something of a stack there, but now here we're sort of looking at the border, so they're facing off here. Back behind the borders, a bit that I'm sort of hoping like they're here, that they don't see them, so they're not overly worried about us at the moment. At least that's my thought. Light bomber prototypes. Okay, grayed out. We're still doing transport planes. Let's move over there. Yeah. Fuel, oh, rare materials, no thank you. I know we're, okay, wing aerodynamics. To me, the one thing that's most competitive and critical for the air is the fighters. Yeah. Grease. No. No. Belgium. Yeah. Okay. Simpson and Company, Schul and Thuringia. Eventually there's an intermediate name, and I don't even know if I put it in there, but becomes part of the Gustloff work, which is involved with the 4-year plan, and to some degree I believe with the well, no, it's a government, basically government owned. It's confiscated. It's not really part of the Hermann Goering works, but it's associated in some ways. Simpson and Co. was the smallest of the big arms manufacturers in Germany up and through World War I. So it was, since it was the smallest of the large one, it was the one that was allowed to continue to exist, because the Allies realized, yes, Germany needs some arms manufacturer, but we don't want them to have too big of one. So that was Simpson Co. As Simpson was a Jewish family, very German Jewish family, and they were, of course, confiscated. Um, the family fled in 1936. They were charged with the crime of, at some point, of overcharging. This is my well, this is what is told to me by someone from the Simpson, a descendant of the Simpson family, that they were charged or accused or whatever with the crime of overcharging the government for weapons, and so they needed to confiscate their factories. Well, as the family understands it, was they claimed to say, I don't know, deliver 5,000 pistols and get charged and, you know, send in a bill for them, but it was a very high bill because they really sent in 10,000. They were part of the program to fool the Versailles inspectors, and so that they were illegally, but in Germany's favor, and this is very much before the Nazis took over, were working to help rearm Germany up, and so they were reporting false numbers of completed, what, you know, they were mostly Mauser rifles, Luger pistols, and those types of weapons, and so that they were running through all of that, and so they then get this charge. And the people who charged them knew full and well that that's what was going on, because I'm sure there was some secret set of books somewhere that were dealing with it. But the public books, the ones that the you know, sort of open for inspection, showed that they were overcharging the government for weapons. So we gain a heavy industry capacity in Dusseldorf, and he claims to lose one in Dusseldorf and gain one in Munich. Dusseldorf is over here, isn't it? Oh, and well, okay, so that's sort of the tragic story behind that. The Simpson and Co. Luger collectors and whatever will recognize these stamp markings as guns from their period and before. Gustav work. It becomes a much bigger company as other confiscated, not just from Jewish companies, but other confiscated, nationalized, whatever you want to call them, companies get put into the Gustav works, and they sort of spread to different parts of Germany and make all kinds of stuff. We'll see some more of that later, not just weaponry. That's their company logo, the G there. So Dusseldorf has 3. Munich, I just want to test this out because we are seeing the gain and the lose. And Munich has 1 heavy industry. So plus industrial zone and production. So, well, we got 2 in Munich. And we now have 4 in Dusseldorf. So, and I'll tell you, I've looked at the code because it's my event. Both have the same code, you know, just with a different location as to where to put a heavy industry down. Why does one say gain and one say lose? I don't know. I can't fathom it. I've spent some time way back when trying to figure that out, solve it, whatever you want to call that. And I've just given up on that because the event works as intended. It doesn't display as intended. So what am I going to do? And yes, I'm mostly out of, though, of course, if you've been listening, I'm going to do at least one decent readjustment here, but we'll give him. the Jaeger unit of things for Third Reich events, but you know, so I'm mostly going, what the hell. Saudi Arabia, now that, well, they like us a little bit. We give them money for rare materials. No, we have the money. Well, let's pause this. We barely have enough raw materials, so okay, we want to improve relations after everything going on. The Marine Hitlerjugend. As we've seen earlier, there was a very large SA element teaching Marine skills. This is an event covering, and I'm showing you the, you know, some effects of doing the for the Hitler Youth. As maybe you can sort of see there, them on a smaller, you know, smaller sailing yacht kind of thing. They had some of those. They didn't have any ships, but they would go out and go on, whether just for a few hours or a few days or whatever, on Navy ships to get naval life training and this kind of stuff. And they continued with marksmanship. So we can fund a little bit more training or not leave Army training, because they're already doing Army training for the HJ. So yes, we will increase that. Most of these events are almost no-brainers that you'll want to do, but I still sort of kind of feel that it's somewhere between, well, you know, it adds up, so it gives you a real choice, you know, supplies. If you didn't follow my advice and other people's advice that I see around to stockpile supplies and they're hurting, you can decide not to do it. But it also gives the player just a sense of feel of, what do you call it? Of choice. I mean, not everything is just forced upon you. Okay, gun turrets advance. Even when I see it as a no-brainer. Like, well, of course you'd take that, wouldn't you? Okay, just looking here, looking around a little bit more. Yeah, so let's go with, I think, ammunition capacity, even though it has a little bit of that red. Help with air defense and air attack. I think it balances out to be good. Okay, well, we're going to end the episode here. I want to thank you so much for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos. And, of course, please post questions, comments, suggestions, ideas. Love hearing from you. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.